Hello, welcome back, everyone. I am Cindy, and I have once again with me Kai Shanti. We've done a couple of videos already. Last time I talked to you, we were talking about on your channel about money and mysticism. We've
Yes,
talked about Kundalini awakenings. Kai does similar kind of work that I do, but you're in Pennsylvania, right?
yes, North Central Pennsylvania.
And I'm in Georgia, good old South Georgia. We actually met here in Georgia about, I think we determined it was about 10 years ago or so when she was passing through town, and she came in and she did a Shaktipat energy workshop with all of us at the studio, and just fell in love with her at that since then. And we've been friends ever since and keeping in touch.
That was on a New Year's Day too. I just remember that.
You're right. It was on New Year's Day. Wow.
It's fun.
Yeah, so it's coming up on our anniversary of our meeting time. And yeah, we just enjoy chatting like this because I think we have some similar experiences, but also different points of views about things. And it just, it's good to hear different points of view, especially now with there being so much information out there, and just having these conversations, these open and honest conversations about stuff that we go through, people go through, especially as if you're intuitive or empathic, or you're light worker, or you're just simply into this kind of work of growing and spiritual awakening, and how we're all handling that, how we're doing it, and comparing notes too.
Yeah, really, I think that's so helpful. It's helpful for me to listen to other people, and it's helpful for me to discuss it like with you. And I think it's helpful for people listening, definitely.
Yeah, because you need to know that you're not completely going crazy or nuts, that other people are going through these transformations as well. And one thing that we were talking about is this idea of pain and suffering, and whether it's necessary to go through this. And I think this, there's all sorts of different points of view on this, depending on what spiritual perspective that you take. Some spiritual ideologies say, well, it's not necessary. And others say, well, if you're born on this earth, then you're probably going to experience some kind of pain and suffering, because it's part of your learning and your growth experience. And through it, you evolve, you grow, more of yourself. And yeah, so just these different points of view. And not only that, but I think some people are going to go through more of that than others. That there are some folks that come into this world and very easy go lucky people. They're naturally more aligned, and I look at those people and I'm amazed.
Me too.
And when you look at that, you might say, well, maybe pain and suffering isn't necessary, but why do some of us go through it more than others? And I don't know. I mean, I don't think either you nor I have the perfect answer, but I think we have perspectives and things we can share about it.
Yes, because it hasn't been my path to have no suffering and pain, because yes, I came in here with a very troubled family life, and memories have been surfacing more and more about my childhood over this COVID thing, just abuse that happened. And that was really heavy at the beginning of COVID, abuse from not only this lifetime, but many past lifetimes. And it was the worst suffering I think I've ever experienced, like re-experiencing all of that. And it was very clear to me while it was happening that it was a clearing, but it didn't make it any less painful. I mean, maybe it did. Maybe the realization that it was actually an enlightening experience was helpful. But it was pretty extreme. And then even last week, I had another flashback of something that I had completely forgotten surfaced, which always blows my mind that we can bury something so deeply.
Was that when I'm sorry,
I
I was gonna ask, was that one from this,
this
this lifetime?
lifetime, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I get a lot of past lifetimes as well, but when I was at the Joe Dispenza retreat last month, I haven't really talked about this experience, but we did he does a pineal gland meditation at 4 a.m. and it's like 4.5 hours. And they're always fun because you always have some crazy journey. So I had this journey with these beings and they put me in this healing pod. And then I went to this other place. And then there was like this big, huge film, like an old film reel. And these beings were like really fast pulling this film reel out. And then they would stop it and put it in the light thing. And so this one scene would project and then they would tell me to look at it. So I would look at it and it would take a while to focus in. And it was just past life, extremely traumatic experiences from past lives that I just lay there and experienced. There were about 3 or 4 of them, I think. So for whatever reason, yeah, I haven't had the no pain and suffering path. But I have had it come through me in meditation, where the energy says, you don't have to go through the pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So that's confusing for me because I don't feel like I bring it on. I feel like it comes up as part of my clearing process, as part of my awakening process. People sorry.
No, go ahead.
People I don't know if you know Kaya Ra.
She's the one that wrote the Sophia Code, right?
Mm-hmm. Apparently she was in like a satanic cult or a sex cult, just something so horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't follow her much, but I see her posts sometimes. And apparently she's also had a lot of memories surface over this past time period of just things that maybe she hadn't remembered previously. So I don't know. It seems like some of us who are really doing this intense, shall we call it goddess work, divine mother work, it seems like we're experiencing some of this just deep, deep, deep trauma, whether it's even just our experience or if we're experiencing it for the whole, that the feminine has suffered. I don't know. What are your feelings about that?
The same. I don't think my path has definitely not been one of no pain and suffering. And it's not that I went through any major trauma in this lifetime. I've had regular trauma, I've had like Generation X trauma, where if you talk to a lot of people my age, we've gone through similar kind of things. Of course, the divorced parents, I mean. Mm-hmm. And one parent who's an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. I was also,
that can be pretty traumatic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is pretty traumatic, but I guess compared to being in a satanic cult, like you're talking about,
I mean, that's
like, my trauma seems like more normal trauma than some other, not that it diminishes it, but so, I've gone through, and I think one of the bigger parts is I was born in Peru, and at about 4 years old, I was pulled out of my homeland and came here to the United States. And through the work that I've done, I never realized how traumatic that part was.
Oh, okay.
So there's things like that where, where then you have to go through like abandonment issues from being pulled from your home, and then, all the divorce things, and like father issues, because I never had a close relationship with my real father. And then, there's the real father, there's the stepfather, there's alcoholism within the blend. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was never mistreated or abused or anything like that, but I think being more sensitive and empathic, we take it on more deeply.
Right.
I think there was that. And as far as what's in my genetic coding and my DNA, because of where I'm from, and I have a lot of like in South American indigenous blood from the people of the Andes. Mm-hmm. And then that whole genocide, that whole
Sure.
indigenous genocide thing, I felt that was that was a very intense thing to
That
have
can
to
be
go through
very,
for myself.
that can be. I worked with a woman who was Chinese, and wow, she really was experiencing that.
Yeah.
Like you can take on your whole country's ancestry.
Yes, country, that your tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some, I think there was some like witch wounds,
Yes.
burnings, persecutions,
Yes.
having to refine your voice as a healer or intuitive or an empath or whatever you want to call it. Even if
Yeah, I
you're,
think
even if you're an herbalist.
absolutely. I think we're all still doing, I mean, I think that's what we're doing right now. I think we're all still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That work. I think I'm over it. And then I think I've been looking for a house to buy with my kids, and I thought, well, I don't want to be too far out in the woods. I do want my privacy. And I realized that was fear talking. I don't want to be too far out. I want to have neighbors because I feel safer.
Yeah.
That's still fear of the male, of the masculine. That was speaking that. So I have to look at that. Still in there.
Right. How these little ideas and beliefs begin to surface. It is crazy. And it is such a spiraling path. And
I
and I was just going to say how, yeah, I mean, when you're born to remember all that, how can you, I mean, I'm sure that we could probably at a snap of the finger, because we are powerful beyond measure. And I know this on a intelligence level, and I'm sure you know this too, like on a rational level. We're very powerful beings. And if we could just get our minds to completely just clear, in an instant. That's what they say, right? Like the healers and the ones who say that suffering isn't necessary, that you could heal this stuff probably in an instant. But I just don't know how human that is. Like for most human, maybe 95, well, no, I was opposite that. Maybe what, 3, 4, 5% of humanity. And I think that even that is being generous, can do that instantaneously, heal and resolve and not have to go through so many of the layers. But I think like 95% of humanity who is born into this are the ones who are born to, to do the work, that it takes more time.
I saw, and I don't really follow Satguru, but I saw, and I've been wanting to watch this video, something about that the most highly evolved beings have to go through the most karma.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard that before too, that the mystics are, I mean, they're the ones who are on the path to God, because they're trying to figure out the answers. Because there's one thing about going through pain and suffering is you ask more questions. You're wanting to figure things out, so you tend to study more, you delve deeper into philosophy and how to make yourself better. Yeah. Whereas someone who is born just in joy and peace and their life is that way, they may not necessarily need to ask all the questions, you know what I mean? Because they're already there.
Yes. And they may also not be inspired to teach and help others, because they would probably assume that everyone's already there if they are already there.
Right. Yeah.
Like when you go through it, then you're really inspired to help others on the journey out of compassion, out of, mere compassion.
Yeah. Carl Jung, you'd call that the wounded healer, the archetype of the wounded healer.
I've been working with a lot of really amazing women lately. I feel so blessed, the women that have been called to work with me lately. Just really powerful, it's just such an honor. And so they always bring me blessings, in the sessions. with their guides and just who they are. And so there was a session, I don't know, recently, and Babaji, who I've had interactions with here and there a little bit, but not a lot, came in really powerfully. And so he was speaking to both me and her. So it's things we both needed to hear. But what he was saying, and it was just so clear in the moment that he was saying it, was just all the stuff you've been through has just been an initiation. It's all initiation. And I was thinking about, I think it was the book Anna, Grandmother of Jesus. Have you read that?
I've read, I don't know if I've read that one specifically, but I do have some books about Anna, Grandmother of Jesus.
I love this book. I recommend it to people because it's just a really fun read, and it's one of those books you can't put down.
Is it channeled?
Yes, it's channeled.
Okay, I might have maybe the second. I don't know. She's this author. Maybe she's written more than one.
She has.
Okay.
I really like the first one, but I think it's in that book that they talk about, because according to those teachings, Jesus actually studied with Babaji in that lineage, and all of the tests that they had to go through, like swimming in these underwater caves full of alligators. And I'm just always like, oh my God, there's no way in hell I could, like, how, but if I want to get there, I have to go through that kind of test. But what was being presented was, well, you've been through those kind of tests now. All of the stuff you've been through, that is your initiation. So it's been like swimming through an underground cave full of alligators. Yeah, it's pretty much been that. It's just presented itself differently in the world as worldly experiences. Being burned at the stake, being sexually abused, whatever, all the things we've had to make our way through and come out on the other side bright and shiny.
Right.
It's initiation.
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about it and to have these kind of conversations, so that if you are having a transitional moment or an initiation, or you're going through some pain and through some suffering, to not think that that you're doing something wrong.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes especially as someone who, studies growth and spirituality and evolution, and we'll tell ourselves, well, I shouldn't be feeling any kind of pain anymore. But then we add judgment on top of the pain, which is just pain on top of pain. And I see that a lot in the people that I see. I can imagine that you probably see that too. That saying or giving yourself permission to be human and to feel whatever that you're feeling, so that it can, so that you can go through your initiation, or you can learn, or you can grow through it, instead of stifling it and pushing it down and thinking that you're like a bad person, you're doing something wrong because you're having these experiences. Yes. I think that's one of the things that within the spiritual world and spiritual perspectives, where it might not be very serving, this idea of you shouldn't have any kind of pain or suffering, because then when you do have it, then you think that you're doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with you.
And I think what's happening is that the teachers that are saying it are hiding their own. And that's not serving anybody. It's not serving them. It's not serving their community. And then you see a lot of mental issues coming because of all of that mental turmoil about, why is this happening to me? What am I doing? Then you see all these mental issues coming out of those situations. Or I've seen a lot of mental issues coming out of those situations, because people think they shouldn't, my God, I've been doing this for so long and I should be perfect by now. And then the mind just goes, rather than just letting it clear and do its thing. Who knows why who knows why I had another sexual abuse memory last week? Why didn't it come up 5 years ago? I don't know, but it didn't. And this is when it came up. That's why I love, because Kaya Ra is really in a position, she has this amazing book, she gives workshops with I don't know how many people, but she's a very well-known person, but she's still really raw with and honest with what's going on with her. And I love that. I absolutely love that we have representation of that with someone who's more well-known. So
Yeah,
that people can go, yeah, oh,
I think we
wow,
need that.
she's going through it, even though she's doing the work in a really high way. She's still going through it.
Mhm.
Stuff is still surfacing.
Yeah, it gives you permission to feel what you need to feel. Because I think what it all comes down to in the end, it's not just about the pain and suffering, but learning how to be with yourself and learning how to love yourself in your human experience. It really comes right back down to self-love, like that radical kind of self-love, where
Yes.
even within your hurt and your pain and your turmoil, you still see yourself as worthy, and you see your humanness as this, even though there might be pain and turmoil there, that spirit, the divine, is there with you, that you're not abandoned within it, that spirit, the divine mother, the divine father, or both are there with you, helping you to process and to get through it, and to help you on your next level of growth of your ascension. And
That's what I,
just
yeah,
because you're going through those experiences doesn't mean that you've been abandoned by God or your creator.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say when you started. That was allowing yourself to be loved by God, by the divine in the midst of it. To me, that's been the most important part of the process for me. I first
Otherwise, you
found,
get stuck in it, don't you? You can't
yeah,
pull
I
yourself
mean,
out of it.
mhm. And that's been my only salvation. I've, for whatever reason, through this really intense process for me, I haven't really had a lot of human connection. Kaya Rao talks about she has people that are coming to help her, which is so amazing. And I'm helping a lot of people, but for whatever reason, I wasn't supposed to have that, because I think I was supposed to develop a much stronger connection with the divine and knowing that the divine is always there for me no matter what.
Mhm.
That's been a huge part of it for me, is getting to that absolute trust of the divine, that the divine is always there, will always be there, never leaves, no matter what you're going through, no matter how much hell you think you're in.
Yes,
It's the divine is always there, always.
I
So,
know. It's been my salvation too. But I've had to learn it, though. It wasn't
oh
something that
yeah.
I figured out at the beginning. I mean,
Mm-mm.
I fought with myself and went through that whole process of what's wrong with me and why do I feel this and I shouldn't feel this way. And
Mhm.
I've gone through that process, and it's taken me a minute, or it took me a minute to figure that out, right? That the divine is with you throughout the whole things, and then I still forget. I mean, even
Yep.
when I go through some other kind of transition or something in the moment that feels, there's some friction there,
Mhm.
I forget. And then I'm like,
Sure.
"Ooh, have to
Because
remember
those
again."
things, when they're that deep and dark, they just pull you. It's like you're
Right.
being pulled under that water by an alligator, just like,
Comes out of nowhere, catches
it's
you off
intense.
guard. But I think, though, it's important to note that we don't need to stay there,
Right.
that that's not the only thing, that we shouldn't just focus on the pain and the suffering, that there's also a lot of beauty in this world,
Yes.
that there's beautiful people in this world, that, for the most part, I think humanity is good. Humanity is good. We go through issues, of course, individually and collectively,
Yeah.
but we're good. And to, like, when you're going through your shadow periods, yeah, you have to go in, but pull yourself out as quickly as you can.
Yes. Don't dwell if you don't have to. Get in, get through it, and get
Get
out.
it out. Yeah, and start to see the beautiful things that are out there as well. and not to focus just on the bad. Because I think that can happen too.
Oh,
I mean, I
yes.
think there can even be
Absolutely.
spiritual teachings that will take you where, I don't know,
Absolutely.
too much focus on that when
Totally agree.
because then that gets heavy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. For me, it's like focus. I focus on the positive and the light and the love. And if something comes up, it comes up right in the middle of that.
Mm.
And then it's like, okay, well, there's no way around it. I got to get through this, and then you're back in the light and the love. That's how it is for me. But I know what you mean. If you get over focused on that deep, dark, dirty work, and that's where you want to stay, that's an ego trap,
Yeah. Yes,
big time.
it sure is. And then it causes a veil through the lens and how you perceive things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Anything we go through does, but if you're stuck on that, then you start to see the world through that lens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we definitely need a lot of focus on the love and the light and the beauty, because I found it interesting how for a little while there that became very unpopular. It seemed like, oh, I don't want to talk about love and light. Love and light. Do you know what I mean? Like where there was like this
Oh,
thing
I had
where
people.
everyone was like, oh, love it. And I realized that there was a collective shadow that was coming up. And when you're in the shadow period, this is where it needs to be
Mhm.
acknowledged. Yes, where like your pain and suffering needs to be acknowledged. And when you're there, it is hard to focus on the love and light, but there still needs to be a focus on the love and light. You can't just get so in the shadow and you just be like, love and light. It's just like unicorns and then that sucks. And how real is that? Well, it's very real
Yes,
still.
yes,
It's like we're
it is.
dimensional beings that has, dimensions of fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth and 12th, however high it goes. That's just pure bliss and love and light. And then we have, dimensions that include different other flavors of that can be bitter and salty and
Yes.
and the other emotions.
Do you think it's because I mean, I've always posted a lot about love and light. That's what comes through me. That's what the divine always talks about. Be free, love, light, joy, peace. And yeah, for a lot of years, people would just get pissed, and maybe not even directly respond to my comments, but by writing something that I knew was referring to that,
Mhm. Yeah,
bypassing, people
spiritual
aren't looking at
bypassing.
all of that. And I just kept doing my thing, or even to the point of saying that I was burying my head in the sand and not looking at what was really happening, all these things. But I don't see it. So it's either because I'm in a different place or things have shifted. I'm not seeing that as much. Are you seeing that as much?
I'm
That
definitely
people are
seeing
really
less of
still
that.
wanting to, you are, yeah.
I think I'm seeing less in that. But yes, I think it does depend on the individual and what they're going through. And I get it. Like when you are going through a tough time, you don't want to hear about love and light. And there is a way, I think, we have to figure out how to balance that out, because I'm not for spiritual bypassing. And I think if anybody even knew you, like really knew you, they wouldn't even be making those comments, because they know that what you've been through. Do you know what I mean? Like the people that you said that were making those comments is like, well,
Well, it's okay. So some might be spiritual friends that I kind of know, but don't know real well. So yes,
mhm.
others would be friends that are friends from childhood, early adulthood, or family members who think that I just meditate all day long and ignore my kids and I'm a terrible mom because all I do is meditate. So more than one family member has accused me of that. So then maybe I've made comments on maybe childhood friends posts or something like that. Yes. And have been accused of burying my head in the sand, not seeing what's really. So I don't know. I take it all with a grain of salt. I keep saying the same thing. I'm not going to stop saying it anyway, because It's the truth. It's the truth. And it will eventually be heard. That's what I find too, is eventually it's heard, even if it's years down the line, eventually it's heard, you know, and then you see that people shift their perspective. And I don't know, I'm seeing people standing more in that light lately, personally. Just watching people, I'm seeing people, even though there's a lot of darkness going on in the world, I'm seeing people kind of taking more of a light perspective lately. Unless
Well, I
that's
think
just,
people are just tired. You know, we
yeah,
went through this collective shadow period with the pandemic and all that. That's lasted a good couple of years, and people just
yeah,
want out of that.
yeah,
They want different perspective. They want to move on from that heaviness and all the mental stress that might have caused so many people, you
yeah.
know.
And
And
seeing that it's not necessary to keep dwelling in this
no,
fear. I think the average person is starting to see that it's really not necessary to continue to push this fear thing.
on
I
either
think people,
side,
what?
all sides. I was saying on all, on all sides. The propaganda of fear that goes on like a ping pong ball from one side to another side to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not just one particular version of the fear. I think it's coming in all different
Absolutely.
shapes and forms and sizes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I've always thought that this virus was just a teacher to bring us to a higher state, obviously. So,
Yeah. And I think that's a good way to look at the challenges that we go through in life, collectively or in person. When they do happen, when challenge, when pain, when suffering, because I mean, it's going to continue to happen through life unless you are one of the top 2 or 3% of those people who can just, so people are going to die. People are going to pass away. People are going to lose jobs. Your dog, your cat is going to die. And are you supposed to not feel any kind of grief or pain when these transitions in life happen? I mean, maybe a really, really, very, very enlightened being might be able to do that. But I think for the normal human being, we're going to have to, we're going to have to go through our emotions and
yeah,
process and just, give ourselves permission to process and to feel and to be with where we are. But then, but then as it passes, you don't want to be in that state of grief or pain or dwelling on it for forever.
right, right. You go through what you need
You
to go
always
through.
want to get back. Oh, I'm sorry, I still have a landline. My phone rings every now and again and I forget.
Yeah,
but
we,
yeah, and I don't know. I think that's the most human way that I've been able to manage through those experiences, that don't beat yourself up or for having those moments of pain, and don't necessarily
yeah.
think of it as a bad experience, but don't dwell in it at the same time, and still honor and celebrate the love and celebrate the light, celebrate the goodness that's in this world.
And I think too, it's just so important to just gentle your way through the experiences. Every time something comes up heavy with someone in a session, and sometimes we aren't able to clear it by the end of the session. I'm like, oh, I know they're going to have a rough week. And I'm just like, oh, please be gentle with yourself. Just give yourself baths and tea and sleep, and don't worry about it. Got to be gentle. You just have to be gentle. Like, we don't have to push, we don't have to bully our way through everything. We can just, okay, I'm going through something. Just keep reminding yourself, I'm going through something. If I want to overeat, freaking overeat. Who cares? It's not going to last forever.
And I think that what you just said, Kai, right there, it's not going to last forever. if we let it pass naturally and gently, and we don't try to stifle it or stuff it down, or we don't give ourselves permission, as long as we do give ourselves the permission to have these moments and these experiences, it won't last. It doesn't last forever. It will pass.
Passes. That's the beautiful thing about age. After 53 years, I can finally say, I know this is going to pass, because everything passes.
It always does. We've made it so far through all of it, haven't we? In these years,
yes.
We're still here.
But I keep saying to the kids about the virus, they're like, oh, and I'm like, honey, it's, I don't know how long, 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, it's going to be gone, just like everything else. AIDS was a terrible thing when it was around, but now it's just a manageable disease that people get. It's not really a big deal. Sure, it's a big deal if you get it, but you know what I mean? It's not like people were deathly afraid of people with AIDS in the beginning with HIV. No, it's just a thing. This is going to be just a thing at some point. It's going to pass. So that's what's gotten my household through it. I just keep saying it'll pass. It'll be gone soon.
Yeah, it will.
And in the meantime, yeah, we're going through a big transition in the meantime, which just is good for the whole world, for everyone. So I don't know. As far as the suffering thing, I say, yes, we're probably, if we're like spiritual beings here to do the spiritual work, yeah, we probably have suffering to go through, but I think your perspective on it shifts. That's my thing. I don't even know if I call it suffering anymore. I call it, oh, I'm going through a release. Oh, I have a program coming up. Oh, I have another memory that needs to, be seen and released. So I guess it might be suffering. It's probably suffering, but I don't really identify it as that anymore. It's just this, there's the feeling. Yep, that's a feeling. That is a feeling. I know that feeling.
And that's part of the growth, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
After going through it a few times and understanding how the process works, and that we don't, that you can go through it much quickly, more quickly, where if you're in a transitional or a clearing period, instead of it lasting for an eternity, 3 or 4 or 5, 6, however many years, that you can get through it. But you recognize, you see it as an opportunity. There's an opportunity for growth there, and you don't have to stay in it for as long. With the time and the experience, and with the understanding of with the understanding of it being like a teacher almost, and that through this human body, that's just the way it works in this human form. Now, if we were alien beings or some other kind of beings, it might work in a different way, but in our human form, through this human body, on this realm, on this earth plane, that's kind of the way it processes.
Yeah.
And then you learn it, right? You become familiar with it, and you can go through it much more quickly, instead of sitting in it, dwelling in it, or trying to escape it and then getting caught up in addictions or attachments. All those things that keep us
in that
state.
That's all part of the journey too, though. If you're at that stage of the game.
Hold on a second, Kai, you're breaking up a little bit.
Struggling with. Am I back or not?
No, I think you're good now.
Okay.
I heard some of it where you were saying about the quickening.
Yeah. Has it been good up until that point or not? Because I could go ask people to get off the computer downstairs.
No, it was good up until just now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yesterday I was going on a walk. I do a walking meditation every day for about an hour. And at the beginning of the walk, I was really struggling with something. And it wasn't like an old program that I feel. And it's very specific in my body. And I tune in and I'm like, yes, that's that feeling. And wow, I thought I got rid of this one. Okay, there it is again. And I just I'm walking around the neighborhood getting all these Shakti sounds. Like I'm at this point, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. I just want to get rid of this. And so, and I like talk to God the whole time. I'm like, come on, I don't want it. By the time I end this walk, I want this to be gone. I do not want to have this today. And both my kids had showcases yesterday, and I'm like, I can't be in this space today. This has to go. So I'm begging the divine to just pull this out of me. Lo and behold, by the end of the walk, I was better. And I felt good since then. So, and that's an old program that could have just really got me for days. And so, yeah, I appreciate the quickening that's happening. I was just so grateful to the divine. I was just like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I know that program, and I know what it can do to me. And I know it can make all the people around me miserable. It's just like, no, this is not the day for this.
And isn't it funny how some of them do repeat
But it's
like
not.
that, and you recognize them, and you're like, oh man,
Oh,
there you are
yeah.
again.
I know it. I know it. And I know it's ancestral, and I know it's through my mom's lineage. And I know it. I know this program,
Yeah.
But yeah, for whatever reason, anyway, by the end of that hour walk, it was done. At least for today, like for that time, it was done.
Well, see, that's
So that's when the
beautiful.
divine, I'm just like, oh, I'm just falling at the feet of the divine saying, oh my God, thank you. Like, I'm just so grateful, like that can happen, that it can just release like that, because it feels like it owns you when it's that strong, for
Well,
me
it
anyway.
feels like it is you. I mean, you
Yeah.
feel like you are that energy to the point where
Yes.
you totally forget that you're something. It consumes you where you become it.
Yeah. I was able to separate from it. I was able to see it. Like I could see, like, I know you, I know what you're trying to do to me right now. And
Mhm.
no, we're not going there. But at the same time, it felt impossible to release. So that's when I just go into full surrender mode. And I just say to the divine, this is not me. I know this is not who I am. I'm, I'm ready to clear this. And clear it as many times as I need to clear it until it's done. But I don't see it as part, but I know what you mean when it does feel like it is you, because I know what that feeling is. And just like, I'm never going to get rid of this just is me. But
Mhm.
now I know when it comes in or comes out, this is not me. This is so not me. And I know exactly where it comes from. And I know, I think it helps to work with people though, because you can also see where they've picked things up ancestrally, so like I can see when I'm working with someone, and then I go and see it within myself. It's very easy to identify.
Yeah. You have someone else there with you who can recognize it and say, hey, I see what's going on here, and let me help you pull out of this more
Mhm.
quickly, instead of you
Mhm.
trying to figure it out all by yourself too. Hey, I've felt that. I recognize that kind of energy. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's where it is certainly helpful to work with other people, especially if you are stuck in that mode of feeling like you are that. And
Mhm.
empaths and light workers and intuitives, well, empaths specifically, get that, where you feel, and you feel other people's energy like it's your own. You can hardly separate it from, so you confuse, especially if you're first on the journey, and you're trying to figure yourself out, that you don't realize how much of the pain or whatever that you're experiencing, it doesn't even belong to you at all. It belongs to
Right.
somebody else. And that
Right.
can be so confusing to figure out, because you feel it like it is, like it's your own.
I have so many feelings about that, uh, because there have been so many times when I'm going through something and I'm told, no, this isn't yours. This isn't yours. But I'm carrying it. I'm carrying a piece of it. I'm identifying with it, because if I was not identifying with it, it would not be bothering me. And that's what happened to me yesterday, where this little voice kept trying to say, but he did. And I'm like, no, no. anything he does cannot affect me if I'm in a pure state.
That's a
I was
great
so
way
I
of
was
looking at
arguing.
it. That's a
Yeah, I
great
was
way. I've
arguing with
never
my
really looked at it from
coworker.
that perspective, that you won't pick it up unless you're, you know,
Unless you resonate with it.
yeah.
So that's how I've started looking at that empath thing. I'm like, if somebody's bothering me, if I'm picking up their energy, well, I can't pick up their energy unless I'm resonating with it on some level. So that's been my way of taking responsibility, but also, like yesterday, I saw what my ego was trying to do. My ego was trying to say it's his fault, it's his energy. But by me saying no, this is something within me, because if I was at a higher vibration right now, anything he does would not be bothering me. It just wouldn't.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things I worked through in my walk. I just talked that voice right out of there. I was like, no. So that's because I get that, like, I get that. And I get that whole empath picking up on other people's energies thing. But for myself recently, I've just taken it to that next level of saying, somebody's bothering me. I got to look at something within myself. I got to see.
Mhm.
And then get to where I can be with that person, and that energy does not, I don't know if it's even possible to get to that point, but that's my goal.
Well, I think that's part of the work. It's
Mhm.
if you come in more empathic, it's being able to get to that point to have the intelligence to say that, to separate yourself and say, well, wait a minute, what am I doing and how am I contributing to this? Because being an empath, and the empath is often, since they feel everything, they're very much always wanting to please other people too. I mean, I find that this is just like a common or a thread that might run through the empath world at the beginning of their path. When they're
Sure.
still trying to figure things out, that they're so sensitive to other people's feelings that they don't want other people even to feel pain or hurt.
Yeah.
And because then they feel the pain and the hurt, then they become very attractive to narcissists, and then there's that whole thing where then you have to pull back and figure out, well, wait, what am I doing here? How am I contributing to this relationship, or these different relationships? And the big feelings, and identifying where, yeah, like which one's yours and which one is theirs, and, well, wait a minute, why am I attracting that? That's big work.
Big work. Yeah. Yesterday we're at this showcase. I don't think my ex-husband would care if I shared this, but anyway, he went a little early to save seats for my daughter and I, because it was my son's performance. And he said, this guy walks up. So he gets seats in the front row. He said, this older man walks up. He kind of, and Rod's got his like arm over the chair next to him, obviously saving the seat, and sits right in the chair where Rod has his arm, right? And so the people behind Rod were telling me this story too. And they're like, we thought he knew him. Like the guy was joking, because he just started being really mean. Like, you can't save seats at an event like this. This is a kids event. And just started going off. Apparently just going. And Rod at first was laughing. He thought the guy was joking, but he wasn't, and apparently it escalated, and it got to the point where the guy was like going to hit him or something. I don't know. I think eventually his wife came up and said, no, we have seats back here, like got him to move, right?
Yeah.
So we're having this conversation with the people behind us and with Rod, and I listened to the whole thing. I'm like, well, thanks for saving the seats for us. But at the end I said, well, we need to look at why we're attracting that energy. I always say that, and sometimes it makes others mad, but I always say that, like, why did we attract this energy? Nobody else in the room did. Why did we attract this energy? So, and the people behind him said something like, well, it just happened, like not many people take that stance.
Yeah.
But for me, that's just a beautiful opportunity to say, I don't want to attract this energy anymore. So what is it about me that attracted this? Why was that person attracted to me to have that whole experience with? So yeah, I did that. And we, so I think we sat with that energetically. And then at the end of the show, he came up and apologized to Ron.
We'll see.
So, it's just like dealing with your own inner conflict allows the other person to, I don't know, share or become something, themselves.
And the important part of that too is when you are asking yourself that question, how am I contributing to this? To not do it in a way that feels blaming or bullying or judgmental to yourself.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? Because I think, well, what's wrong when we go into it? What's wrong with me? Like, why? But because that little bit can make a difference as to whether you find a resolution or not.
Sure. That's very true. Very true.
And I think that's the reason why some people don't like to take that stance.
Because then
they feel like there's something that feels conflicting, like there's something wrong with them, or if you meet it more with simple curiosity instead of blaming and judging. Because I see that sometimes, or a lot of times, with some of my clients, where they're like, well, why am I still attracting this? And I suck. How come, you know what I mean? Instead of simply looking at it from a place of an opportunity and curiosity without putting judgment towards yourself. When you're asking yourself that question of where am I contributing, but without putting like casting big blame or big cloud of judgment over yourself as if you're wrong.
Absolutely. And I think it depends where you are in your process too, because that's something that Rod attracts a lot. Less, hopefully, but he's attracted that he just sometimes just attracts really angry people, that just do really crazy angry things. So because we've already discussed it so much and looked at it so much, it was just that simple reminder, oh yeah, that's my little program. Let me see where that's popping up right now. And for me, I know when I'm attracting something, then I just go in and I go, okay, where have I gotten out of balance? Why did I attract this energy again? So yeah, if you can use it as a helpful tool. That's the ideal. It's not to get down on yourself, but just to go, oh, there's that little program that it was just like this blessing that just showed me that I must have had that program, active or something, because I just attracted that energy. Yeah, that's a much better way to do it than blaming. That's not going to do anything.
But yeah, I do think that is part of where you are in your process.
But the poor, sorry.
No, how quickly you can get to that point.
Yeah. But the poor me thing isn't going to help either. That guy's an asshole, poor me. It's definitely not going to be effective either.
That might feel good on some level, but yeah, it's not effective. It feels much better to blame somebody else. Yeah, but it's definitely not going to resolve it. And then it'll be on repeat, right? You ever had that happen where something repeats itself, the same thing within within a week's period? You're like, what the hell? Wait a minute. And you really know there's something going on. Ready to.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was fun. I think we've already been talking for an hour.
Have we? Okay.
Or close to it.
Yeah,
we could go on and on talking about all sorts of other things.
I know.
We'll have to save that for another conversation. I would like to have the conversation, and we were talking beforehand a little bit more about empath stuff, but maybe we can do that we can do that on another day.
Yeah, it's an interesting exploration. And it's interesting because you bring up points about, if you're just discovering you're an empath and how you would probably deal with it differently than where I am on the journey of just taking absolute full responsibility for everything,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little, because when you know you're an empath and you just walk through life pretty much knowing what everybody's thinking and feeling, you just get used to that. I mean, I just get used to that. I just don't walk in a room if it doesn't feel good. I walk away from a conversation if I know the person's thinking something that I don't want to be around. But I, like, for my ex-husband, for instance, he doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll be like, can't you tell that person's uncomfortable? No, absolutely no clue. For me, it's just like so obvious,
Yeah, you walk into the room, you can feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. Or before you even walk in somebody's house. So then you start to learn that other people don't feel that same way. And that's part of the journey too. And then learning how to navigate that. And then avoiding people who have certain energy. And then getting to the point where you go, no, I just want to be in such a high vibration that none of it can latch onto me. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's what I'm trying to do as well. Because you can go into a mode where you hide yourself from life because everything feels too highly sensational.
Right.
Or you can decide that you want to live your life as fully as possible and learn how to manage yourself. And I think even learning how to manage the energy and holding more sensation to where it's not crippling to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not all negative sensation, but for instance, the sensation, this is an experience I had recently, the sensation of growth. Like when something is growing and you have to go through that process of discomfort for growth. Like growth can be a very uncomfortable feeling or sensation because it's pulling you out of what you're normally feeling. In other words, it just feels big.
Sure.
And
yeah.
big feelings feel really big for someone who's more sensitive and empathic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get a big feeling coming on, you're like, oh, can I handle this big feeling? Then maybe I need to shut myself off.
Yes.
And then we might shut ourselves off from our own growth and expansion because it's almost like, or at least I had to, or I'm still doing it. There's my phone ringing again. Training myself to hold bigger feeling without it feeling like it's diminishing. But I think that's a practice that I had to learn for myself.
Me too, where it feels too big, overwhelming.
Yes, overwhelming.
Not sure I can handle this.
Yeah. So how do you increase your container to hold more? Mm-hmm. So that you don't push away all the experiences in your life.
And it's new, so it's unknown. Yeah. Well, that was great, Cindy. Thank you again.
Thank you. I will share for those more interested, and she has a YouTube channel as well. I'll share her YouTube channel and her webpage on the notes, and we'll chat some more.
Great, wonderful, love it. Yeah, I haven't been real active on my YouTube channel, so when I get active again, I'll have you back on too and see how that goes.
All right, sounds good.
All right,
well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.